Hey, everybody. Glad you're here. I think we got another minute before I officially start. So just kind of wait for people to join if they're joining me here today or possibly even listening later. That would be awesome. So, all right, it's right on the hour. Or half hour. So let's go. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Mary Lazier Smith, and I'm currently the author and course creator. And before that, I taught communications at several community colleges and also at the State College of Florida. And I've been training in small businesses as well for the past 5, 6 years. So, all in all, I've been teaching and training in communication for over 30 years now. Now, to say that the traditional way of teaching and learning communication is underwhelming is actually an understatement. Today's complex world really needs different communication, and I'm not talking about technical communication. It might need that too. But now I began to teach this new kind of communication that I'm talking about, and that's when the lives of my students really began to change dramatically for the better. Traditional communication has been taught as what we would call transactional communication. And this is akin to Newtonian thinking. You know, what you give is what you get, or for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction kind of thing. And in communication speak, these show up as spirals. And so we'll talk about that a little bit. But let me give you an example. Let's take an argument. So Alice says, "Brett, you are not listening to me." And Brett retorts, "Of course, I'm listening to you. You just told me what Carrie was doing, and I told you what I thought you should do." And Alice replies, "Exactly, telling me what to do. Not listening." Brett, like, how the hell is that not listening? And the argument continues. It's spiraling, pointing to the other's faults or inadequacies. And this is what we would call the downward spiral, the Newtonian downward spiral. One action begets an equal and opposite reaction. Let's take a meeting at work for another example. Have you ever been in a meeting where the boss has explained his or her point of view and then asked the participants what you think? Then there's this silence from some and also total agreement from others. Now, both are equal opposite reactions to the boss's approach. Let me explain a little further. The silence is by those that oppose but don't dare speak against the boss for fear of being singled out or targeted, possibly fired. And the total agreement is also a response, but by those that don't necessarily agree with the boss, but want to show support and look good. Now, if the boss's intent was to initiate a variety of possible solutions to an ongoing problem, his Newtonian approach begat a Newtonian reaction. Problem solving, therefore, is not happening. Now, in order to change that endless cycle that leads to nowhere or worse, destruction in a relationship, a different way of communicating and thinking and behaving is needed. So enter Einstein. And Einstein said something like this: you can't solve problems with the same thinking or perspective that the problem arose from. Let that sink in a little bit. You can't solve problems with the same thinking or perspective that the problem arose from. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with Newtonian communication. There's a time and a place for that. But if we want a problem to be fixed, we need Einsteinian communication. And this is what I would call transformational or transformative communication. Two different meanings. Einsteinian communication goes beyond, yet includes the Newtonian communication. And of course, then quantum communication goes beyond Einstein and includes it. But that's for another time. Now, when transformative communication occurs, I really think that's what Buddha was speaking about when he said right speech and right action. I also think that's what Jesus was talking about when he said love thy neighbor and even thy enemy as thyself. When we communicate transformationally or transformatively, either or, then communication becomes a powerful tool and method for healing yourself, for healing your relationships and the world, if that's your intent. So once you begin using the right communication tools, these methods, these lenses, and all of that stuff that's involved in transformational communication, literally everything can change and does change. The once impossible becomes possible. Now, if you think your relationship with your kids, or maybe your parents, or your friends, or your coworkers, or even your boss cannot be fixed because you're really coming from opposite beliefs or viewpoints, or you just don't dare, oppose them, you have just been taught and are using Newtonian or transactional communication for the most part. If you learn how to communicate transformatively, then, like I said before, the impossible becomes impossible because becomes possible. Now, you can Google transformational communication, and I'm sure some of you are, and you'll find that a major components to that is this kind of communication. Empathizing is needed, and creating a safe space for dialogue. But how exactly is that done when communication is or defaults to transactional, the one we know how to do, right? A critical component of learning how to communicate transformationally is missing from all this Google info. Now, there's a certain framework and certain critical steps to take in order to live into and operate from transformational communication space. Okay. We're not taught this framework or this method or these steps anywhere. And many argue that that is a major contributor to the failing education systems. And you might be asking, well, if I learned this, but those that I'm in conflict or in opposition with are not learning this, then what happens? Well, the beauty of it is, it really only takes one to begin this, and it has a rippling out effect. And the more you do it, of course, the better you become at it, and these ripples increase and get larger. A year from now, after using this kind of communication, you will look backward and wonder, why had I not pursued this earlier? Because your outlook, your confidence, supportive relationships, relationship trust, and connection are no longer going to be deficits for you. A sense of depletion will have transformed into a sense of peace and joy. So I encourage you, if any of this interests you, if any of this spoke to you today, please join my waitlist, and more info is going to be sent to you Monday. Super appreciate y'all being here today and listening to this, and hopefully it's inspired you. Please feel free to share, and again, join the waitlist, and I'll send more information to you on Monday. Thanks much.